Recently, we heard that in that omnibus bill, the banks got a huge break. What the Congress put in and President Obama supported, in essence, is a little giveaway to the banks where they get to gamble with your money. They get to gamble with depositor money, and then it's FDIC backed. And they get to keep all the profits, but if they lose all the money, well, then the taxpayers have to step in and try to make the depositors whole. Okay, so that's a bit of a disaster. Well, they're not done handing out goodies at the end of the year. Zach Carter from Huffington Post has an excellent article about one more thing the federal government's going to do to give the banks another Christmas present. He explains, Christmas came early for Wall Street this year. The Federal Reserve on Thursday granted banks an extra year to comply with a key provision of the Volcker Rule, a move that gives financial lobbyists more time to kill the new regulation before it goes into effect. Now, in essence, it's actually not a year. It winds up taking you through the 2016 election. So if a Republican president wins, it will never be put into effect. What is the Volcker Rule? The Volcker Rule is you guys claim that you're doing all this trading on behalf of your clients. Okay, so then good. You don't have to do any trading on your own behalf. That's what they call proprietary trading. When the Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan says, I'm now doing this trade so that I can make money off of it. If you're really a bank and you're serving your clients and you're doing trading for them, good, stick to that, right? The banks don't like that because, of course, they're doing their own trading for their own profit. Of course they are, right? So they hate this rule and they want to kill this rule, and now the Federal Reserve is going to help them do that. So further explanation here. The Volcker Rule is a key element of the 2010 Dodd-Frank financial reform law that bans banks from engaging in proprietary trading, speculative deals that are designed only to benefit the bank itself rather than its clients. Thursday's move by the Fed gives banks an additional year to unwind investments in private equity firms, hedge funds, and specialty securities projects. The central bank also said that it plans to extend the deadline by another 12 months next year, which would give Wall Street a 2-year reprieve through the 2016 presidential election. So congratulations. You have completely gutted Dodd-Frank. There will be no checks on the banks, almost no regulation of them whatsoever. What little regulation that Dodd-Frank did has now been eviscerated, okay? So later, when the banks crash, and they will definitely crash, people will say, the right wing, oh, it was overregulation, it was Dodd-Frank, it was Obama. No. I'm telling you ahead of time right now. There has been no regulation. They had the same rules they had back in 2008, and that's why we crashed back in 2008, because these rules allow them to take nearly unlimited risk with your money backed up by the taxpayers. If you're in a situation like that and they have nothing to lose and everything to gain, of course they're going to take more risk. And of course, if you take enough risk, you will eventually crash. It's an absolute fact of life. So we didn't change a damn thing. And they will say, in hindsight, nobody could have seen it coming. Now, I'm telling you, we could see it coming. And I'm telling you that there's even politicians and legislators who could see it coming. Look at what Senator Jeff Merkley says from Oregon. Last week, it was Congress granting the big banks the right to keep trading on banned risky derivatives with government backing. Today, it is the Fed granting big banks 2 more years to make big bets through direct ownership of private equity and hedge funds. So Senator Merkley can see it coming. And so can Representative Alan Grayson. Here's what he said. 6 years after the fact, we have taken no significant action to reduce the Wall Street gambling or too big to fail concentration that caused the 2008 crash. If we can't even implement the Volcker Rule, an extremely modest effort to stave off total disaster, then total disaster is exactly what we can expect. You see that? We can see it coming. It's going to happen. Look, it's not because anybody's evil. They respond to normal incentives and disincentives. If you incentivize people to gamble with other people's money, they will do so, and they will do so in large quantities. If you don't have any of the risk, of course you're going to gamble more. And any gambler knows if you gamble enough, eventually you lose. And in that case, they don't lose, we lose. And the next crash, we will not be able to contain. The whole point of the regulation, the Dodd-Frank bill, was to say next time around it won't be taxpayer backed. But they just changed that. It will be taxpayer backed. That was in the omnibus bill. And the whole point of the second part of the regulation was, well, the banks can't trade for their own benefit, so at least you take that out of the equation. Well, it turns out you didn't take it out of the equation. They do gamble for their own benefit. So we're just as screwed as we were before, except the banks are even larger now. Their derivatives gambling, that market, the derivatives market, is $700 trillion. Even a little error can cause shockwaves we will not be able to contain. So understand who had it right all along, okay? Now, our solution here is to get money out of politics, because if you don't do that, these guys are going to buy the government, and they have bought the government. Let me show you that part of it. Look, the way we're going to fight back is Wolfpack, wolf-pack.com. You get the money out of politics, and you won't have the politicians going, oh, golly gee, did we give the bankers all the advantages again? Did we let them gamble with your money? If they actually represented you, of course they wouldn't let the bankers gamble with your money. But here's who they represent instead. Let me show you the amount of money that the financial industry has poured into Congress. So here's a graph that shows you all the different years, and you see the numbers rising there. And you have to understand something as you look at this chart and you see going into the billions of dollars. It's not just the campaign contributions, it's also lobbying. Lobbying is understated. In fact, as you're going to see in the final numbers here, lobbying is significantly larger than campaign contributions. They're pouring in these billions of dollars in every election cycle. They're not doing it for their health. They're doing it because they'd like to make a purchase, and they're purchasing your legislators. You think that they're spending those billions of dollars and not expecting a return on investment? This is their return on investment, these laws that allow them to gamble with your money. All right, let me show you a chart. Also, again, here contributions, financial sector campaign contributions specifically to federal candidates. This chart shows you two things. One, the contributions are going through the roof as the years go on. Two, it is largely to the Republican Party, although in 2008 they actually give more to Democrats than they do to the Republicans. And they got their money's worth there too, because President Obama gave him a fig leaf called Dodd-Frank, where he pretended to do regulation and then gutted Dodd-Frank, and they in fact did no regulation. So the financial industry was the number one donor to President Obama, and he treated them with kids' gloves. So they're back in charge. So that was actually a good investment. But later they decided, no, we want even more. They poured in a tremendous amount of money to Mitt Romney and the Republicans in 2012, and they continue to do so. So as you can see there, the Republicans are more bought, but the Democrats are also bought, okay? And those are facts based on the numbers. Now let me show you the final numbers here. Just in a decade, from 1998 to 2008. Okay, now, and remember, because of those charts, these numbers have gotten significantly larger since 2008. But in that decade, campaign contributions were, from just the financial industry, $1,738,284,032. That buys you a lot of politicians. And that also bought you that economic crash. Remember, the bankers didn't do poorly in that crash. They got to take home all the profits anyway. We never went back and got those profits. One guy at AIG alone made $600 million. We never got it back. And AIG had to be bailed out to the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars by the American taxpayers. But again, the campaign contributions aren't the only ones. Now look at how much money they spent in that same decade on lobbying. They spent $3,440,551,221. When you put all that together, it amounts to over $5 billion that the banks spent to buy our politicians. You think they're going to spend $5 billion in one decade alone and not expect to get a good purchase in return? They're not dumb folks. They're smart folks rigging the rules on their behalf, and they're spending good money to do it, and they're getting a great return. Stop letting them buy our government. Otherwise, of course they'll set the rules on their behalf, and of course they will eventually crash and leave the bill to us. Take action now so that we don't face these consequences. And if you don't take action, I guarantee those are the consequences you'll have. Write it down in stone. But get up right now and fight back while we still can. wolf-pack.com. You volunteer, you become a member, you do whatever you can to help save not just our democracy, but our economy before it crashes.